So I've been thinking about ultra-wide monitors versus dual monitors lately, and this kind of surprised me. So we'll take two 27-inch monitors here, put them side by side, and now let's compare that with a 34-inch ultra-wide. And you can see they're the same height. The ultra-wide, it is longer than one of the 27 inches, but when you put these next to each other, you get a lot more real estate, you get the same height. So that really underscores the tension here between ultra-wides and dual monitors. All right, so one of the reasons people like ultra-wides is when you put those two regular 16:9 ratio monitors next to each other, you have that gap, that bezel gap between them. And for some people, that center gap, it just kind of doesn't flow away from what they're doing, the immersion. And when you're doing things like spreadsheets or timelines, maybe editing, it's kind of nice to have that continuous flow there. Because for some people, dragging windows across back and forth, they don't like that. One of the big advantages of these ultra-wides here is that you don't have as many cables, your desk is cleaner, you have one display to manage, so it's got a lot simpler there. And honestly, a lot of these ultra-wides, they look kind of cool. For gaming, you also get that immersion that's really nice. Our dual monitors, though, they have some big advantages as well. For instance, here, we're getting a lot more screen area. And having those two screens separate, sometimes that's nice. You put kind of certain apps here, your main apps here maybe, and you just kind of keep this cognitive separation that's really nice. And it's kind of flexible. You could take this one here and rotate it and come up with a completely different setup. So for flexibility, dual monitors are kind of nice. You can change it around, even on the fly when you're working. So I put together a table kind of listing these things out, these advantages, disadvantages, and pause and look at it if you like. So let's just go through and try a few setups. This tool here, we have a number of different setups you can try, but I want to talk about an ultra-wide and a laptop because that's kind of a nice setup here. You can take your ultra-wide like this. Let's say you got a 16 or a 14-inch monitor on your laptop. Let's put the desk back in. We'll put a small desk in. And that works kind of nice. You can have your notebook here with your ultra-wide, and when you need to leave, you just take your notebook, unplug it, and there you go. There are even docking stations you can get just to make that really easy where you drop it right in, everything works, and then you leave. The setup that I like best, this is what I'm using right now, is to have a 27-inch monitor in the center and then two 19-inch monitors, kind of these square 5:4 ratio monitors on the side. I really like that. I kind of tilt these in here, and it approximates kind of a curved monitor, but it's really large. Sometimes if I want to focus, I just turn these off. I'm also really fond of two 27-inch monitors. And I put a link to the 27-inch monitors I use down in the description below if you're interested. Another neat setup is the TIE Fighter, and you'll see why. So this is kind of similar to what I have, but we have these monitors up here a little higher, and that kind of helps you retain focus. Although you do need to make sure your stands are able to get those up in the air for you. Sometimes creators, like YouTube creators or streamers, they like to have this L shape here, where you take your kind of regular 20-inch 4:3 and you rotate that up. So now when you're streaming, you can have your comments here, maybe you have OBS over here, and then you have your main stream here that's going on if you're sharing your screen or a game that people can see. So this is a nice setup, and you can put different monitors in here to see what that looks like. If you fancy yourself a day trader and you want the command central post here, this is the command matrix. And this is where you have a number of monitors all here with different things up. And you'll see this sometimes when people have to deal with a lot of different sets of data. You do need special monitor arms though to make this work, and that gets to be a little complicated, but it does look impressive. So let's talk about cost. Often when you go with something like this setup here, or perhaps when you have the 227, that classic look here, it's cheaper than buying something like a 34-inch ultra-wide. Or at the minimum, it's a pretty close price point. So sometimes that influences the decision. So if you shop around, you might find that these monitors here, just the regular monitors in a dual sense, they're cheaper than just getting an ultra-wide. There's also something called a super wide monitor that's kind of interesting. So you could get something like a super wide. Actually, the 49-inch super wide is pretty much like two 27-inch monitors right next to each other. And if we compare that, say, to our 34-inch ultra-wide, you can see the difference there. Or even there's a 57-inch super wide. If you really want to go big, maybe get a bigger desk. So honestly, I don't think there's really one right answer. It's really what you're trying to do with the monitor, whether you don't mind having that kind of gap between monitors. Maybe you want the flexibility of separate screens you can shift around however you want. Or maybe you want a hybrid setup. Or just to create some interesting monitor art in your office. Like the histogram setup here. And you can try this tool over on my website, tvsimplified.com. And if you want me to create more tools and videos like this, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching.